Hi everyone, welcome to Perennia's fourth and final webinar of the Idea to Market series, provided to you by the Agri-Food Funding Program. Today's topic will be Aim and Fire. My name is Emily Page, and I'm a food scientist with Perennia Food and Agriculture. We offer a wide array of services to support Nova Scotia's agriculture and seafood sectors, such as food safety, agriculture extension, mobile wine bottling, and analytical testing of cannabis foods and beverages. Here at the Perennia Food and Beverage Innovation Center, we work with clients on product development, process improvement, nutritional labeling, and shelf life determination. First, I would like to introduce our guest presenter, Gary Morton of Morton Horticultural Associates. Gary has worked in agriculture for 40 years, helping farms and food businesses across Canada find new value, success, and profit from what they do. Today's webinar will provide you a checklist for a new product launch strategy, tips on product pitching, and how to grow your business. Lastly, just a quick housekeeping note for using Zoom webinars. If you have a question during the session, please use the Q&A button, which is located at the bottom of your Zoom window. I will be monitoring the questions throughout the webinar for Gary. However, we will answer most of the questions at the end of the presentation. This webinar will be recorded and posted to our YouTube channel, so you can replay it later or share with your friends and colleagues who couldn't join us today. Let's get started, Gary.
Thank you, Emily, for that nice introduction, and thanks to Perennia for hosting this series. This has been great. We've been through 3 webinars to this point, and welcome everyone to webinar number 4, Aim and Fire, where we're going to look at launch sequence, we're going to look at growing sales, making it better, and growing your business. And it's very exciting when you actually get to the launch stage, because there's probably nothing more exciting. You've put in a lot of hard work, a lot of anticipation, maybe anxiety to get to this point. And really what you're trying to do now is, or you're doing now, is you're validating all this hard work to make sure that there is an opportunity out there. And you're aligning your products with that customer need. So all these steps that you've taken to get to this point, the idea development, where you've taken your ideas and you've fleshed them out and screened them down, and then you've developed a product, and you've built a prototype, and you've taken it to the market, and you used it to validate, and you've helped establish your pricing, and you've got help to make all that happen. And then last week in our webinar series number 3, Essential Plans, we went through all the essential plans and the business model that are going to help get you to where you need to go. So there is no guarantee of success ever, but all these actions that you've taken are probably have reduced your risk and are going to increases your chances of success tenfold. So as I mentioned, we're going to look at launch sequence, growing your sales, make it better, and then growing your business today. I'm going to start off with this quote by Henry Ford, which I always liked. He says, I'm looking for people who have the infinite capacity to not know what can't be done. I think in new product development, that's what gives us innovation. That's what allows us to find new things that other people have never done before, is to have that burning desire to go out and develop something new. And when people say it's impossible, you say, well, what if it were possible? How would we do it? And it's a great quote to start off with here today. So it's time for the rubber to hit the road. You've done everything, you've got your point, and it's time to take that product to market. And as I mentioned, that launch is a little bit, you're hesitant about it because you've been probably confident as you've been moving along so far in that you've developed a product and you've got one that you like and you've tested it, and you know that at least it's been validated by a group of people, and there's a portion of the market that likes it. But now when you're launching it out into the real world, there's a lot of anxiety about, is this going to work? And this is what we're going to talk about today, the things, again, that'll help you succeed. In our first webinar, number 1, idea development, we talked about why do this. So we explored why you're developing this new product, and you've looked at balancing your goals with your company's goals, with the customer's goals, and a new product goals. So this is what you've come up with, the vision of why you want to do this. In webinar number 2, product development, we talked about why this product. And that was about creating a prototype and validating it in the marketplace and making sure that you've got something that the customer wants, that's aligned with a customer need, and something that you can go forward with. In Essential Plans, webinar number 3, we talked about why plan. And I hope you got out of that there are a lot of plans that you do need to do, and people tend to avoid wanting to plan. But planning really helps you succeed, and it helps you think about everything. It's not about the plan documents at all. It's about the process you go through and what you have to think about and how you think about your environment. So when we're now to aim and fire, we're talking about launching. It's like, why not? Let's do it, and let's see what's going to happen. And through this whole process, you've changed your bubbles. You burst your bubbles, if you want to call it. And I've talked about this in almost every webinar so far. But you've come from a bubble of where you sort of what you think you know. And then there's a bubble beyond that that's what you know you don't know. And then there's a bubble beyond that, what you don't know you don't know. And I think through the process that you've been through the first 3 webinars, it's helped you bust these bubbles, and hopefully you've escaped from some of this and got answers to many of these questions and things that maybe people often overlook, and they also will help you succeed in the long run. We talked about 2 new product choices, and typically people either create a product and then go looking for a customer, trying to find a customer, or maybe the preferred route is to make something that a customer wants to buy. And the process that we've been through is really focused on that. It's focused on finding a customer need, creating a product that's a solution to that need, and then sharing that information with the customer so that they completely understand that this is a product that will help them and benefit them. We looked at the business model in the last webinar, Essential Plans. And the reason you look at the business model is because it puts all the little pieces together. It makes you think about all these different things and steps as you're going forward, because it's very easy to just focus on the product and say, we've got to put the product together and not logically think about all these things. So the business model forced us to look at targeting the customer segments, like who is that target customer that you're making this product for? What's the unique value proposition that's going to connect with that target group of customers? Then what are the channels to markets that you can actually get that product to those target customers? What customer relationships need to be developed so that we can actually facilitate those products going to the target segments? And then what are the revenue streams that are going to be generated from this? Because you need to generate revenue. And if you don't generate enough, maybe that product isn't going to work. If you're going to generate a lot, it's something you really want to focus on. Then there's all the key business activities that are going to make things successful. What do you need to do? What are the actions and things that need to happen to make this whole system work? What are the key resources you need? Do you need facilities? Do you need buildings? Can you use somebody else's facilities to make this work? Who are the key partners that are going to help you move forward, develop your whole product from idea to market? And then finally, you need to look at the cost structures, because in the end, you have to produce something for less than it costs you to make if you're going to be successful. So the business model has worked you through all these steps to help make you more successful. It's helped reduce the risk. So now we're ready to look at the product launch. You're going to hit that button and off you're going to go. You're going to launch that product into the marketplace. When your product is ready to go and sitting on the loading dock, it's only 10% of the way to the market. And this may seem like a downer after all the things I've been talking about here, but it's probably true. I had a mentor tell me this probably 30 or 40 years ago now, when I used to work in the greenhouse industry. And he used to tell me that, when your product is all sitting here ready to go, it's only 10% of the way. So it's so easy to focus on production, for making the product. And people focus on that because they really like to do those aspects. But there's so many other aspects here of getting that product from that loading dock into the hands of that customer and getting paid. And those are a lot of the things we're exploring today. Why customers are reluctant to take on new products. And I get asked this a lot, and people don't understand, well, it's a new product, you take it to a customer, and why are they reluctant to take my new product and try it? Well, it's for a number of reasons. Is they're not in the business of taking risk. So for example, if you have your product and you're going to sell it to your customer, you're going to want to get paid in 30 days. Now that customer, by the time he receives that product and he gets it out to his customers through his system, and he's going to probably take 30 days before he gets back. And then those customers have to get their product probably out to the end consumer. So what happens is there's a long time lag here. You've been paid for your product, but the customer that you've sold it to doesn't really know if it's going to sell in the product. They're in the marketplace, and they're taking the risk. So it could be 30, it could be 60, it could be 90, it could be many more days before they actually find if the end consumer wants to buy your product. So this is why many are reluctant to take on new products, reluctant to take on expensive new products. So this is a place where you can actually work with some of these customers to increase the terms or change some things in support and add some point of sale materials or things that will help move those products on the other end. So it's something that you need to consider as well. The product risk matrix is the other one. And we've talked about this before, but if you're taking existing products to existing customers, the point is that they already know your product. So they already know you and they know your product. So they're well aware of everything, and it's basically easy to take those products to those customers. If you take new products to existing customers, the challenge is that they know you, but they don't know that new product. So there's going to be education around that new product that is required if you want your existing customers to buy it. If you're taking existing products to new customers, they know the product, but they don't know you. So you have to do the sales and the education around your product with that customer so that they're confident in you and will buy those products. Now, the biggest challenge is always taking new products to new customers, because they're going to go, who are you and what is that product? And you'll see this with new products that are totally innovative or totally new, is that no one knows what they are and they require a lot of education. And if you need to make sure that you have the budget and the resources to educate the consumer about those products. When you launch with no map of how to get there, no plan, basically, you're going in all different directions. It would be the same as a ship leaving a port. How are you going to get to a city if you don't have the coordinates of how to get there? If we're taking off on a rocket ship, we're not going to get anywhere where we need to go if we don't have a map of how to get there. So the sequential map helps us get from A to B. And that's a lot of what we're talking about with strategy and plans and all those things to help get you where you need to go. You can get from Pictou County in this map to Antigonish following the 104 highway if you know that it's there and you have the map to help you get there. But if you don't, people get lost all over the countryside. What we're talking about here is unleashing those essential plans that we talked about. That scale-up plan, the plan that's going to help you grow your business, the food safety plan, your distribution plan, your marketing plan, and then your sales plan. So we're going to talk about those in the next few minutes here. The launch sequence starts with the scale-up plan. And you need to be able to scale up your production as you're going forward. The formulas that you have at a pilot level are not necessarily the formulas that are going to work at the scale-up production level. There's nothing worse than going out and getting sales and then not being able to deliver your product. And customers don't like that, and it will give you a sourness in the marketplace very quickly. So it's very important in your launch sequence that you have a scale-up production plan in place. Do you have the people available? Do you have the resources? Do you have the supplies, like the input goods? Sometimes it takes you months to get some of your packaging or your products in line, and to know what is going to work. And don't make promises that you can't keep at this point. So it's important to look at scaling up, making sure that you have all the things in place. And if you can't do it, then maybe there's a co-packer that can do it for you. Launch the food safety plan. And the food safety plan is critical, and it's probably going to be more important than ever in the future, because people are looking at food safety, they're looking at safety, and if you don't have a food safety plan, you're not going to enter many of the markets that maybe you thought you would. So go through the process of getting the help to get the food safety plans in place and take it serious. A food safety plan is really super critical in the marketplace today, and it's not going to go away and it's not something that you want to diminish. Take it seriously, invest in it. It will pay dividends in the future. Launching your marketing plan. Now, your marketing plan is the one that is going to help you attract customers. The main issue that you're looking at here with marketing is, how do I get customers? How do I communicate with those customers? And then I want to keep those customers. So the marketing strategy that I've got to launch is, I've got to get people interested in this new product that I have. And I have to put the things in place that are going to make that happen. You can have the best product in the world, but if you can't sell it, then you still got it. And that was from Diamond Jim Brady, who was the philanthropist in the 1900s, in the early 1900s in the US, a businessman. And it's so true. Like, you can have the best product in the world, but if you can't sell it, then you still have it in your warehouse. And that's what I was talking about earlier, that you're only 10% of the way to the market when it's sitting on your dock. The one that's often overlooked is launching the sales plan. And I think this is overlooked because most people don't like selling. They like the idea of making the products. They like the idea of producing the products. But selling is the one that people often don't put a big enough budget with it. When you go to many small companies, there isn't a sales position. The sales position is being shared by production positions and a number of other things. And what happens out of this is you end up probably being more of an order taker than actually an order creator. And you need to make sure that you have a good sales plan in place. Making sales presentations and pitches is super important. And it doesn't matter whether you're doing direct selling, which is selling directly to the consumer. You may have a business where your end consumer, you sell directly to them. You may have a market. You may have a stand at the farmer's market. You may have an online business that sells directly. And you still have to make presentations and pitches to get them interested and bring them in. Wholesale customers are just as important, and sometimes they're even harder to make these pitches and these presentations too, because you only have 1 or 2 times a year to make those presentations. So you have to have a well planned out presentation. And I'm pretty sure if you go back and look in some of the past webinars that Perennia has done, there's some done by Skew Food there that will help you look at making presentations and pitches for taking your product to the customer. And then finally, there's launching your sales plan for online. And this is a huge one that's changing rapidly. And there's many different ways to take your product to the consumer online, but it's a growing area. It's a growing thing that you need to be looking at, and you need to have that plan of how that's going to happen. Getting it on the shelf is one of the key things in your marketing plan. You've got to get that product, convince somebody to put that product on the shelf for you. And there's a lot of work and those presentation pitches to make that happen. But is that a home run or a foul ball if I get listed with the grocery store or get it on the shelf somewhere? It's not one that I can just walk away from, because you've got to get it off the shelf as well. And it's your responsibility as a product producer to get that product off the shelf. The grocery store is basically, if we're talking about your product is in a grocer, it's basically their job or their role in this is to have a place where products are available to a large number of people. Now, if people come in and don't buy your product, that is not necessarily their fault. It's probably the fault of the product producer or supplier. And you need to put a plan in place to make sure that you're going to help get that product off the shelf, whether it's shelf talkers or it's point of sale materials or anything that can catch that customer's attention, or it's advertising. And it could be social media, it could be regular advertising, but you've got to create awareness for that product, and there needs to be a pull off the shelf, and it is still your responsibility. So you need to have investment and money available to make some of this happen. And then finally, with launching sequences, you've got to look at the monitoring of this whole thing, because you're probably going into new territory for most people when you're developing a new product. Sometimes it's a company that has other products and are constantly developing new products and they have more of a system in place. But for you, you need to look at assessing and adjusting everything as required. Your plans were the best ideas that you had or the best concepts that you had at the time, but when you get in the real marketplace, you may find that things are a little bit different. So you have to be willing to adjust and monitor and to change as the market's telling you. The next thing is to make it better. And when I say make it better, what we're talking about is you get to a point that your product is in the market and it's selling. You've been successful making those sales pitches and those presentations. You've got it on the shelf. You're getting the pull off the shelf. You're gaining some market share. You're gaining some activity out there. You're gaining some brand awareness. And the next thing is, how do you make your product a little bit better? Because there'll be other copycats come along. There'll be other products that are similar to this, and your competition will be ramping up their products a little bit because you've come into the marketplace and maybe have been taking away some of their market share. So it's always this challenge to get some market share and to keep things going forward. So you need to look at, how do I make my product better? How do I put color on my eggs to make them more attractive to the customer so that I can get 2 or 3 times the price that they would otherwise? There's stages of product growth that you need to consider as well. And when you start out, and this sigmoid curve, you can see the rise and fall of every product. But on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see when you start out, basically there's a lot of investment into your product and it may be tough for a while to get that market share. And you've got to duke it out with other people because people don't just let you come into the market very easily, especially if there's competing products. People don't give up market share very easily. So you'll have to use your strategies and sell the benefits of your products to get above that line there. You can see the dotted line. But eventually, if you've been successful and got all the things in place, your product will grow and it starts to on an upward climb. And as it's going up, there's a point when it's going to peak. And that's probably at a point when maybe the market's getting a little bit tired of your product, or something new has come along, or competitors have started to do other things. And you'll see the decline coming off there. And this is the point when you'll see when many products will reinvent themselves. They'll say, here's a new improved version of my product. Here's the new improved product that'll do something better for you. And the idea is you keep pushing that curve up farther and farther. And that's why you constantly have to be innovating and developing new products. So even if you're in the market for a long time and have a really secure product, you need to look at, how do I keep pushing the envelope so that I can make my product better and keep the interest in my product? When we look at this idea, product, essential plan, and aim circle, the blue circle in the middle here, you can see that it's circling around your business, and you're trying to build your business as you're developing your ideas and developing your products and making the plans, and you're getting successful in the marketplace. And you can see the next circle is in red, is that once you get successful in the marketplace and you get some sales and you get comfortable there for a little while, you can't stay there too long because you need to improve your ideas, and you're going to keep making your product better. And then you're going to create new plans to go after new markets and to find new customers. And it's a continual circle that you're always doing with these products. So there isn't really a point you're going to get to that you can sit back in your laurels and say, wow, this is really great. It's a constant process with new product development, of keeping ahead of the competition, keeping your customers happy, making sure your products are aligned with the customer need, and everything's working as you'd like. Making it better. What are some of the things you can do to make it better? Well, to make your product better, it could be as simple as better sales support. Like I was mentioning earlier, if you don't have a lot of sales support in your company, you need to figure out some ways to maybe help your sales efforts, and maybe some other outside people can come in and help you. Maybe there's some agents that you could use, or brokers, and these are the people that could help you get more products in front of more markets. Now, there's a cost to those things, but it might actually be a better service for your customers. You could improve your customer service, and almost everybody can constantly improve their customer service. But great customer service is one of the keys to keeping customers happy and keeping those sales going forward. Adding new features. And this would be things like the example I was using in one of my other webinars here was that airbags in a car are features. Well, if you have 10 airbags in your car, maybe you need to add 20 airbags to make this work for the customer and make them more interested in your product. But you can always add some new features. Maybe it's an added benefit that you're giving to your product. Maybe it's free delivery when people order online, or maybe it's free services that you can offer, or maybe it's recipes that are available. These are all things that can help people really see the value or increase value in your product. So you're trying to increase the value on an ongoing basis. This is one of the key jobs that you have as a business manager, is that you've constantly got to increase that value proposition with your customers so that they keep seeing that your product is important and your product relates and your product aligns. And some of the other things on the business side you can look at are increasing efficiency. When you start out, you probably don't have the equipment that you need to be super efficient. You can invest in new equipment to become more efficient. You can look at ways to reduce your cost of production, because everything you can do to reduce your cost of production is dollars in your pocket. Looking at the circular economy, can I make it more recyclable? Can I change it so that people are interested in my product because I have a full traceability program? And the carbon footprint, anything you can do to reduce the carbon footprint are ways to make this better. And do it better is another way. I'd like to use the example here of Julie Budd at Leaping Deer Legends in Ingersoll, Ontario. And she was in one of my workshops many, many years ago. And Julie is just a really interesting person. They have a agritourism operation. They have a tractor, old antique tractor dealership, and they have a hog farm. And it's really an interesting way that Julie took the agritourism aspect of this business and kept pushing it and developing it. You can see the corn maze in the field there, and to get some attention, what she did was, for example, she just did it better than some of the competition. She went out and hired an airplane. They flew over the farm. They took the pictures. She took the photos to the newspaper, and voila, it ends up on the front page of the local newspaper, and you get lots of profile. You do it a little bit different than other people. What I like probably more than anything was her shopping cart. Her husband, Don, built her this shopping cart. It looks like a John Deere tractor. What Julie does is she takes the shopping cart in her pickup truck to the grocery store when she gets her groceries. She drives us through the grocery store. She has brochures on the side. She hands them out to her agritourism operation. She talks about food, and she's not shy about talking about anybody about agriculture and supporting agriculture. So these are all the things the little things that sometimes people can do to just make it better and to do it better. So you can't get too crazy about this. You can't lose your head over it. It's not too complicated. Most of these things that we're talking about are very simple and straightforward. And most of it is around the progression of value, of the product value. You're trying to move your product from a commodity level in most cases, being like everybody else, getting what everybody else is getting, and differentiating it. And differentiating could be a natural product, it could be an organic product, it could be just different varieties and things that other people don't have. And now you've moved yourself up the progression matrix, or the graph here, to a new level. And then the next one is starting to look at how could I value add some of these things. And the more value that I can add into my products, the more dollars I'll get back in return. And then finally, when you can connect experiences with your products, that's where you're going to see the highest value. So in the long term, once you get your product in the marketplace, it may be a commodity, it may be already at the differentiation or value added level, but you need to be constantly pushing the envelope and trying to move up this line, this red line, to get more value for your product, add more experiences, make more connections, and that's where you'll see the best returns. A product is not a business, and we're trying to grow your business here. And you can see that a product is really only one little piece of what we've been talking about in these last 4 webinars. You have to look at the entrepreneur and the goals and the vision of the entrepreneur. The customer is key here. You've got to align your products with the customer, or there's no opportunity. And the product has to be the right product for that customer. You do need to have marketing efforts. No matter how much you love just making products, you still got to sell it. And then that sales effort is one that is key to building those relationships and trust for the long term. And then eventually you're going to get to a point where you have to grow the business, because you just can't stay the same. And whether this is developing new products, or it's developing new services, or just making what you do a whole lot better. Is your business ready for this launch? Is it ready? The cash flow is one of the ones that I find people kind of often forget about, and it makes it very difficult sometimes to launch new products for people. The finances here are, you have to look at the fact that you have to pay suppliers. And sometimes it could be months that you have to pay ahead to get the products that you want. So for example, your packaging or your labels or those things, and your ingredients and things that you have to order. You have to make your product. So you've got to pay the people to make it, your staff, or if you're hiring it out to a co-packer, you have to be able to deliver that product to the consumer. There's a cost to that. Then you've got to get it to your customer, who has to get it to that end consumer. And by the time you actually get paid for all this, it could be many months from when you started off to actually when you get a check in your hand. And that's assuming that it sells really good on the other end. So make sure that you've thought about your cash flow and that you have the resources necessary to get yourself going forward. Typically, there's lots of help and money to help you develop products. But as you're out in the marketplace on your own, you need to have your own resources to be able to get that product to the end consumer and to be able to finance it till you get money back in your pocket. I want to use this quick little graph here to show that you have to constantly be looking at increasing, trying to increase your price as much as you can and incrementally in the marketplace. And then, at the same time, you need to be looking at reducing your cost. If you took the top example, there's 100 products that sell for $2. They're $200 in sales. 100 units at a cost of $1.90, that's $190 in cost. You're going to end up with a $10 profit. If you increase your price by 5%, that's up by 10 cents. So that's 100 units at $2.10 is going to give you $210 in sales. Your costs are still the same, 100 units at the cost of $1.90 or $190, but now you've made $20 in profit because you've increased your price. But where you're going to make the most money is if you can work at increasing your price, inching your price up, and reducing your costs at the same time. So if you took 100 units, production units at $2.10, which is an increase of 5%, it's $210. You reduce your costs by 5%. Of those 100 units, that's down to $1.80 per unit, or $180 in cost for 100 units. So now you've made $30 in profit. So you can see that ongoing, how you're going to make the most money is constantly working at trying to inch your prices up, which means you've got to add more value. You've got to be more relevant with your customer. They've got to see more benefits. And then you constantly have to be working at reducing your costs and your prices. And that's where you're going to see the best returns going forward. You can't negotiate with a tiger when his head is in your mouth. So you have to have these plans well thought out in advance. You can't just show up and hope that it's all going to work out. This is why planning is so critical and so helpful as you're moving forward. One of the other things I'd like to pass on right now too is that in the marketplace, some people have the false idea that you've got to go out there and beat all the other competition to a pulp, and you've got to beat everybody up, and you've got to win. And really what you have to do is just position yourself in the marketplace to be profitable and to outlast the competition. And you need to do things that are better than the competition and to make things better than the competition. So it's not about beating the competition all the time, because there are infinite possibilities out there in the marketplace of what you can do. There's probably infinite markets that you can explore. There's infinite things that you can do to make your product stand out in the marketplace and make your product desirable by the customer. So be creative, think about all the possibilities, and don't focus on, well, I've got to beat the competition all the time. what you have to do is just be better than the competition, one-up them all the time, but you don't have to drive them down in price, and you don't have to do any of those kind of things. Another key critical thing to do is to build your team. You can see from this picture, like if your team doesn't have some good direction, it gets pretty muddy and pretty dirty out there. But your team can help you get to where you want to go. You can't do it all by yourself. You've seen from the work that we've done over the past 3 and now into this webinar, there's a lot of things going on. So you can't really do it all by yourself. So you're going to need some help. And who's going to help you get there? It's one of the key questions that you need to ask. And you need to hire smart, motivated people to help you do what you need to do. You need to pay them what they're worth. And that is a challenge for some people sometimes, because again, I'll go back to the hire the smart, motivated people. Sometimes you're going to have to hire people in this business, for example, that are very, very smart, and they have maybe more skills than you do in some areas. And sometimes people have trouble with that, but you really need to get over that because those people are the ones that will help you get to where you can't get on your own. And you may need to pay them what they're worth. And that sometimes is hard when you're paying them more than maybe you're paying yourself, at least in the beginning. So you need to think about these things as you're moving forward and launching your products, that you're all prepared to make this happen. Because if you don't have people to delegate to, you don't free up your time. And I've seen so many businesses where you talk to them and the people are just run ragged because they're doing everything. And I know they'll say that I don't have the money to do these things, or they don't have the sales, but this is what you have to work at is sometimes you're taking leaps of faith to get to that next level, but the more planning you do, the better prepared you are going forward, the better chance you are to have these people available to help you move it forward. And you need to empower these people to help you succeed. Don't just hire people and let them, wait around. You have to have direction and manage those people going forward. And you need to train them, because the only thing worse than training your staff and they leave is not training them and they stay. And I've seen so many businesses where when times get rough, they cut back on marketing, they cut back on training. That's when you sort of have to double down and you have to say, no, we have to market more. We have to get our staff more skilled, and we have to make sure that we have the people in place to make this going forward, because pretty much everything is a people business. And positioning yourself for the future, I'd like to take the next few minutes to just talk about this a little bit. And this is positioning your products and your business for the future. And this matrix comes from the Boston Consulting Group. And it's interesting when you start to look at this, because if you look at you can see there's a star and a question mark and a cash cow and a dog here. And on the bottom, there's the relative market share, and the left up the side is the relative market growth rate. And you can see it goes from low to high, and then on the top, high to low. So what it's basically saying is that, on the relative market share, those are the ones that can generate cash. And you can go from like a high cash generator to maybe a lower cash generator. And then when you look at the market growth rate, you're looking at the ones that use up the cash. And as you go up, they're using more cash to market. And as you're down, you see the cash cow and the dog. You don't use as much cash. I'll explain this a little bit more in the next diagrams here, I hope anyway. Okay, a rising star product. What is a rising star product? A product is in a rising star is in a high growth market with a high market share. And it requires a lot of investment to keep it going. And it typically generates a high return. But the challenge is it's a lot of work and it costs a lot of money, and you need to keep investing into it. So, but you have a big market share, you have a growth opportunity, and you know that this is your rising star, and you've got to keep investing in it. Hopefully your new product is a rising star. Then there's the cash cows. And these are the products that are in the low growth market area, but they're an area where you have a high market share. And what you're trying to do here, and this is for example, I guess we could use milk as an example, because it's a low growth market, because the market doesn't need a lot more milk all the time, but it's also a market where it's consistently returning money, and if you keep doing certain inputs, money comes out the other end. So what you're trying to do is milking the cow in this category without actually killing the cow. And, you know, it's usually for mature and more established products. When you get to this point, you're trying to, you know, make sure that that cash flow happens. This is a fairly straightforward, you do this and a result comes out the other end. So it's a desirable place to be in, but it's not a growth area having a cash cow. The rising star is more the growth area. Now, the ones that are a little bit more of a challenge are the question marks, for example. And the question marks are sometimes the problem child because they are in high growth markets, but you haven't got the market share yet. So you've got a new product, you're into a marketplace that's very competitive. You may have an awesome product, a great product, but you're just having trouble getting that market share, getting that traction that you need. So the question that's always in your mind is this going to become a rising star or is this going to become a dog? And the issue here is that you need to maybe invest a lot of money into this product to make sure that it's going to be a star and rise to stardom. So it's always a little bit risky with these products, and you're always trying to focus a little bit about what's happening, and you monitor them very closely. And then finally, there's the dog. These are products with low growth or market share, and they can be a drain on your resources. And the problem with dogs is that they're cute and they're cuddly, and they're maybe the product that you've started out with and or your family's had for a long time, and you just can't get rid of it. And like you couldn't really get rid of your dog, you know, you're not going to rehome your dog very easily. So it's very difficult sometimes when you have a dog to cut the line that you need. And sometimes it can be a drain on the business. It can take a lot of resources and time for what's returned, but sometimes it can be a low cost thing to operate, and it can keep going on, and you just keep it going until it actually retires out of the business at some point and passes on. But the dog is one that, you know, is probably not bringing a whole lot of return back to the business, but it's maybe one you have close ties with. So just to go through those again, there's the rising star, there's the cash cow, there's the question mark product, and there's the dog. And your new product is going to fit in one of those, and you need to be able to, and your existing products are going to fit into some of those. So it's good to go back and check your products out on a pretty regular basis to make sure what's happening there. So ideally, we'd like to be able to go to the money tree and, you know, sit back after we launch our new product and get all the cash that we can out of it. But as most entrepreneurs are, they don't sit still for very long. They're always looking to, you know, there's this pull, this magnetic pull, and this new opportunity always that is out there for the entrepreneur. And if you're a true entrepreneur, you're probably going to be pulled in new directions all the time, even after you get your product launched. And you're going to be looking for the best new options going forward and new ways to do things better. And that's constantly what the entrepreneurs do. You're going to explore new market channels because you're not going to be happy with where you are. You're probably going to want that grow it to a new level. And today, as I mentioned earlier, with online sales, there's new opportunities, and it's totally different and changing the marketplace considerably. And we don't know what the future is going to bring with that, but I think it's going to be a big opportunity that every new product has to look at. Then private label sales. We've got label sales that are options that you can make products for other people under different labels. You can go direct to the consumer sales. There's regional, national, and export sales you can start to go to. But the whole purpose is entrepreneurs are looking to generate more revenues and profits from their products all the time. So they're constantly looking at how to make things better. Your future competitive advantage will depend on your ability to learn faster and to react faster than any of your competition. And in a changing world, that's what we need to do. I want to just briefly go back and say, when you're developing a new product, why you're doing all this is you're trying to create gold. And I don't mean gold in the nasty sense, I mean gold in the good sense. You want to create money and cash flow to give your family a good living and you a good living. You want to be able to put money away for your retirement. That's the gold watch. And you want to be able to build your assets so that you can actually position your business to either sell or pass on to another family member. So here we are, we finally reached it. We've gone through idea development, we've gone through product development, essential plans, and aim and fire and your product is launched off into the marketplace. I'm very pleased that we've been able to get to this point, and very happy after four webinars. This has been a lot of fun. I hope you all enjoy it. I really do encourage you to give us feedback and help us understand how to make this better in the future, and if there's new things that you'd like to do. So I'd like to leave you with a quote from Mark Twain. It says, plan for the future, because that's where you're going to spend the rest of your life. And it's so key and so important. And then one last thing I'm just going to say before I pass it back to Emily is I gave you an observation action worksheet last week. I'd like you to do this for your product as you're developing it and you're taking it to the market. Once you've launched it in the marketplace, go, what things worked well? What are the concerns we need to address? And the suggestions for next time. And I know your product will be much better. Emily, tell us about the next stuff.
So just quickly, this is the last slide before the question and answers. So if you do have any questions, please submit them now using the Q&A button. But this webinar was actually based off of a booklet that we had previously designed before this webinar. And it contains more details of every session we put on, along with the profit wheel that Gary has mentioned a few times. We really want to get these booklets into the hands of our webinar attendees, so all of you. So you'll have a chance to sign up to receive one of these booklets directly mailed to you. I'm going to send an email later today that is a SurveyMonkey link. You'll be able to sign up for the Idea to Viable Business booklet that goes along with this series. Please sign up. We want to mail the booklets to you. This is a simple address fill-in form, and we also have asked a few questions on this link just for your feedback on how the course went. We would really appreciate your feedback so we can continue providing these series and that we can improve your experience for attending them next time. We'd like to start sending out the booklets first thing next week, so please take the time today or tomorrow or over the weekend and fill in your address information so we can get them to you as soon as possible. And we'll go into the question and answers now. There's no open questions yet, but if you do have any, please submit. Oh, and one popped in, so that's perfect. We'll just flip to the next slide, Gary. And the question is, what if I have an idea and all the plans to go with the idea, but I am short on startup? I have some, but it is not enough. How do I find more startup capital?
Well, startup capital is one of the most difficult things probably when you're developing new products, because you're also asking people to potentially take a risk along with you. Most people developing new products are going to have to either have equity or they're going to have equity of other people to be able to make it happen. It does take a lot of money to develop a new product. There's many different things you can see from these webinars. There's many things that have to be done, and there's a time that it's going to happen or going to develop over. And we didn't even talk about too much about the actual product, the physical aspect of the product, and there's costs to being able to get that prototype developed and maybe the testing and those things as well. But to find the money, you don't really want to go. I'm really against people on new products going out and borrowing a whole bunch of money, because to me that's risky. It's taking on a lot of risk, unnecessary risk, because you never do know for sure what's going to happen with the product, and there's lots of things that can go sideways on you, and then you're stuck, giving up a whole bunch of, or owing a whole bunch of money. What people mostly do is they get equity, and that's from other believers in their product. And that could be from your own money, your family's money, friends' money, or you may find investors that if they see the potential in your product, that's what you need to do. But borrowing money is a tough challenge when you're doing it, and you'll find it very difficult actually to borrow money in this case. So I would suggest you try to find some equity, and this is why you plan. This is why, if the process that we talked about in all 4 webinars here, if you go through this process, you're going to be much more comfortable about that the product is a good idea. You're connecting it with a consumer need. You're validating it in the marketplace. You're aligning it with that need, and you'll probably find it easier to find people to invest in this product as well when you have all that information. So do your planning and get all your resources together.
Yep, and I'd also say, depending on what the product is, there is different sources of funding in the province, depending again on what the type of product is, but there are different funding boards available. So always make sure you look into it. Another question here, Gary, is how do you build a body of evidence to prove a prototype is viable? Should you do this yourself or get others to do this so not to build a bias?
I think you have to do both. You have to start with your own work and building that body of evidence. Take it out to as many people as you can. Try it as much as you can. I've mentioned farmers markets before as really good places to go, and when you're able to go to farmers markets and to get instant feedback from the people, because you can actually show the people the product, you can see the reactions, and that's one of the best places to start. And if you try it with enough people, you'll get information about whether this is any good or not. There's a lot of things that you have to do on your own, research that you have to constantly do, look at what other people are doing out there in the marketplace. But to build that body of evidence, if you have the resources, you can get other people to help you with it. And that can be very valuable at some point. And there may be programs that can help you do that as well, as Emily was mentioning. But I would say that the main thing is that you've got to start off with you, but do always assume that you're being biased and that you have to get other people's opinion. And for example, one of the things would be in your area, like when you start off, I think, you probably know that if you have a new product, then your family's probably going to look at it. They probably will encourage you to keep going and not want to hurt your feelings. And you're going to take it to your local market and you probably get some good feedback there. But where you really start to learn things is when you go to distant markets. So if you're going to a farm market in your rural community or your local community, I would suggest get out to other farm markets, larger farm markets, and try your product and get feedback where people have no idea who you are and no idea about your product. And those are where you start to get the valuable feedback and validations. But there's never a guarantee. All you can do is your best job of trying to get that information. But the more you align it with a target customer, the more you understand that target customer, then the better chance you are of aligning that product and being successful and having a good validation on it.
Great, thanks. We have a few more minutes and there's no other questions. So if you do have another burning question on your mind, please submit it now. But Gary, I did want to ask you something that we're at the end of the series here, and assuming that a good chunk of the people watching throughout this series are at that idea stage, what would be your final advice for somebody who's got that great idea and hasn't made that first step yet?
I think the advice I would give you is that to get at it. And so many people will hum and haw about an idea. And if you really have that entrepreneurial spirit, if there's some drive in you, you're going to be thinking about this idea all the time. It's just going to drive you nuts until you actually go try something about it. But the longer you put it off, the more chance you're going to find that maybe somebody else will do that product or you'll miss the opportunity. And I'm a believer in that if you follow the process that we talked about, you go back to the idea development webinar and just do some of the things in there. You'll find out whether it's a good thing for you, if it's a good product for the marketplace, and if there's an opportunity. So if you go through that process, I would say do that one as quickly as possible. People typically want to jump right to the product as quick as they can, but I would suggest that the most important thing is to make sure that whatever this idea is, that there's somebody out there that it's going to deliver some results for, or be a product that they want to buy. Because I can probably just go back and say, there's no bigger waste of time than producing a product that nobody wants to buy. And, as you're going through this with a new idea, just assume that you know nothing, and don't assume that you know anything about this product, and just be open to whatever feedback somebody's going to give you, and take that and work with that and use it to help you validate the product.
Great. We just had another question there, and it's with a new product, how do you establish price? And I would recommend that you go back and watch through the series because we did cover this in an earlier webinar. And also we covered it in the last series. There's another playlist on our YouTube channel called the Take Your Product to Market series. And that was with Gary as well. It was called Pricing for Profit and Understanding Margins. So if you want me to send direct links, just send me an email and I can send direct links to those resources. But with that, I will close it off. So thank you, Gary, for presenting today again.
Okay, thank you, Emily.
Teaching us about this successful launch strategies. And thank you for presenting the entire series with me. I will speak for the audience with all of the positive feedback we've gotten. We've done an amazing job.
Thank you. Thank you. And thanks to everybody for coming, and go back and watch those other webinars if this is the first one you've seen, because many of the questions that you're asking there are probably answered in some of those as well.
Yep. So if you have any other follow-up questions to this webinar or anything throughout the series, Gary and I's contact information is on the screen. So feel free to email us any of your questions using the subject line Idea to Market webinar, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. This was the fourth of the 4-part series. So the other first 3 are already on our YouTube channel. So go and check them out, watch them again, share them with your friends. It's all under the Idea to Market playlist on Perennia's YouTube channel. Thanks to all of you for joining us throughout the series. We really hope you have some important takeaways to help get your products to market. Today's resources for this webinar will be sent early next week. Sorry for the inconvenience, but our graphic designer is currently unavailable, so we will be getting them to you as quickly as we can. However, the sign up email for the booklet will be coming from me today. And so sign up as soon as possible so we can get them to you as soon as possible. Thanks for coming, and we hope we'll see you all again sometime soon.
Thank you.